Yeah, legends. My last video, I said that I was expecting a bounce on Ethereum, right? And maybe potentially even a real bottom, right? Before we get an alt season. Now, what has happened since then? And are we going to get an alt season? All of these questions and more. So what happened was we pushed down, we were trading about 27.50, and I said, look, could potentially get another sweep of the lows. All right, if we do, you want to see the market push up, retrace, and then continue to the upside. Now you can see that that's what's happened here. So have we found a true bottom? Are we going to see alt season? It's not looking good so far. All right. Two reasons I'm going to explain to you why. First and foremost, volume. Now, volume is very, very important. If you have a look here, you can see that the volume has gotten weaker and weaker on this push to the upside. Now, looking at volume, you can see when the market, you're not looking at the colors of the candles, right? What you're looking at is the size of the candles when the market is moving in a particular direction. So if you have a look, as the market's moving down, we're seeing boom, big, fat, strong, increasing volume candles, right? And when the market starts pushing back to the upside, you can see that volume sort of fell off more and more as we push to these highs. Now, that is not an ideal scenario, all right? That's telling you that the market this is more likely a corrective structure. And that's further confirmed by the way that all of these candles are overlapping. All right, when you're seeing overlapping candles like this, it's usually an implication that the market is in a corrective structure and it isn't a true bottom. With that being said, crypto has been playing games with volume all year. It's probably because institutional investors have other means of getting into the market. So not all hope is lost. On top of that, based on structure, whether this is corrective or not, I still think we have another leg of money to the upside. So, as I said to you guys, after the market has put in five waves, what you should see is at least a retracement to the 382. Now, we're not at the 382 yet, and this is a minimum retracement. If you have a look here, we've got relatively equal highs sitting above the top of the fourth wave inside of premium. So, I'd say that this is a very high probability target for Ethereum to see in the near future. So if you're looking at around 3,600 here before you're in any real danger, I do think that this is the most likely scenario here, that we are going to get a pullback through here and then a push up to about 36, 3,700. Right. What happens from there, we'll be able to determine through volume whether we get a reversal, whether they keep plowing through, whatever. I still think that on this next pullback we get is going to be a pretty good time to get into the market. Now, BTC, what that would look like on BTC, again, put in five waves up, should see a retracement at least to the 382 of this whole range. All right, see 382 is down here, looking at about 88,350. So outside of that, what else is structure telling us? You can see here when we put in these highs, they put in what's known as an AMD. Now, an AMD is essentially when the market trades sideways. They push up outside of a sideways range and then immediately get met with a rejection. So you can see here that we've pushed up, traded sideways, pushed up, immediately got hit with a rejection and left a fair value gap behind when they pushed down. Now, if you want to get targets for an AMD structure, what you can do is you can take the leg of money that manipulates outside of this range. So you can see that we started here, we pushed up to them highs, and you can use retracement fibs. So if I take this from the low to the high, double click your fibs and use the 2 and 2.5 and also your 4. Now your 2 and 2.5, man, I'd say they pull back to this about 80% of the time. All right, this is going to be your highest probability pullback. So if we highlight this zone through here, all right, and say, okay, this is a very, very likely place for the market to pull back to, and where we look for the market to find some strength again before they start pushing to the upside. Now, if I want to find some confluence, I'll run my retracement fibs again from the bottom of this leg to the top. I can see that this 382 is very much in alignment with the AMD target. All right, so what this tells me is that BTC should at least see this level, 88,300, before they're ready to run. Now, you do have one more target outside of the terminus, although I do think it's too deep. It's your 4. So if I have a look for some kind of alignment on these charts at this 4, the terminus, I can see we've got these relatively equal lows with a fair value gap sitting above here. So there's still the potential that BTC ends up all the way back at 84K before a proper run. I would be leaning heavier towards this 88,300 zone. All right. Now, where would the market like to go from there? It's going to depend where we pull back to. I'll be able to tell you more after we do get this pullback, and if we see a lower time frame reversal to figure out where the next targets are. Minimum target I'd be looking at for something like this would be 98K. I do think it's likely that we end up higher than that to bring some FOMO into the market. But ultimately, I don't think that this is going to be the major bottom unless we start seeing some strong impulsive candles and some big fat buy side volume. I think it's probably likely that we do have another leg down and the market's doing something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. This is probably the higher probability scenario I can see here as of now. Right. And that will change if we do see some stronger volume coming in. But you can see that this buy side volume is just extremely, extremely weak. Now, who really gives a shit about Ethereum and BTC when you can make much more money on altcoins? So looking at this, I can see here what looks like an inverse head and shoulders pattern forming. We can see there's a fair value gap that would align with the right shoulder on useless. What I would be expecting through here, left shoulder, right shoulder, boom. And then they push up into this diagonal. So retracing this breakout of this wedge we've got here. And minimum target, and you'd be looking at a 50-60% move on useless through here. And all you want to see is some impulsive money come in through this zone, 0.101887. Be looking for an inverse head and shoulders pattern to form. Push up into this fair value gap at the highs, halfway through the wedge, right? Is a very conservative target for this wedge. And if we do find strength, then you're looking at 150% back to these highs. And the implication is actually that we end up back here before we see continuation. So I'm very interested to see what this next leg of money looks like. Like I said, conservative target, you got 60% back to these highs. So that's nothing wrong with that. Virtual's in a point of interest where I'd really like to trade it from. The issue I have is that the other charts aren't in alignment with this yet. So I'm curious to see where these guys end up. Where I'd really like to get into virtuals is through this 4-hour fair value gap through here. I don't like trading anything that bottoms this way without sweeping the liquidity from the lows. Now, what I was expecting on virtuals, if we're going to see a true bottom, was for them to trade sideways like this, tap into this low, and then launch. We've taken the upside liquidity first, and I don't like that because they leave all these orders down here. They're very obvious orders. It's really unusual to see the market do that. So if we can have virtuals back under here, back under this accumulation range somehow, I would like to take it from this fair value gap through here. What else we got? So last but not least, USDT.D. Now this is adding a little bit more confidence to my theory of one more sweep of the lows. Got this monthly fair value gap above. We're extraordinarily close. Said to you guys, I was wondering if they were even going to take it or not. I do think it's probably likely that they do at this point. Reason for that is because I think this is what they're running. I don't think they've put in the final fifth of this. It's like a expanding, broadening wedge, whatever you want to call it. Ending fifth diagonal. All right. So what I think is likely to happen is that the market. So remember inverse relationship with crypto. So I do think that they come put in the fourth wave here. We get our fifth wave up like this. That's what I'm expecting to see. And the reason for that is you can see that this, again, it's not impulsive price action to the downside. It's very slow. It's very choppy. It's very controlled. That is much more corrective in nature. Right, you can see when fast money pushes into the market, this is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. This is very slow. So the count I've got for these guys is more of a ABC. So what we're looking for is 5, the ABC, and then 5. All right. So what we'd be looking for on these guys is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then end up getting our sell off again. But there's so much meat in this. Like in a move like this, there's so much meat in this bone. So all we're trying to do is catch the top of the 2 wave and then trade the 3, 4, 5 down. All right. Now this should see crypto rally. You should see F at about 3,600, etc. So what I'm looking at here, right, is I'm trying to catch the top of this 2 wave. I'm trying to catch the top of this 2 wave down on USDT.D to look for longs. Now, why? Because they've tapped into this fair value gap. They've tapped into a point of interest. So why don't I think the bottom is in yet? And that comes down to premium and discount. So if I take my fibs from here and I run them from the top to the bottom of this leg, what I can see is that the market hasn't actually tapped into premium yet. Now, if smart money is looking to position long, they do so underneath the 50. If they're looking to position short, they do so above the 50. I know this might be confusing for you guys because USDT chart has an inverse relationship with crypto, but please follow along. Like try to follow along. Look, if they haven't tapped into premium, then it's very unlikely it's the top of the move. So what I think is actually likely to happen here is that we're going to pull back into this fair value gap through here. I do think we are still inside of like this ugly sort of two wave. Potentially, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Potentially, yeah. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into it. OBC 1, 2. Look, anyway, long story short, I think we need to tap into here before the market looks like we're going to get a pullback again. It also aligns with what we're seeing on BTC. So what I'm expecting to see on BTC is a push up into this fair value gap through here. Expecting them to sell off from there back into the 382 target and then launch. So something like this. All right. This is what I'm anticipating. So what that would look like on USDT.D, I mean, this is why it makes sense. You know, you're just looking for the opposite. So looking for them to go down first, then up, then back down. All right, and then BTC, we're looking for them to go up first, down, then back up. So basically, we're looking at 91,500 back to 88,400, 88,300, and then push up into about 97, 98K conservatively. Looking at this, there's a whole bunch of liquidity here and fair value gaps. You know, potentially even back up to 100K. We're just going to have to see how we go. I'll know a lot more, like I said, once we get the pullback. Useless is setting up for a really, really nice move here. Ethereum, you know, looking at about 36, 3,700. I'm expecting one more leg up. We might run into a little bit of grief here. 32.50. You know, that's if we're going to get a very shallow pullback. That's where I'd expect it to happen. But for now, I'm just looking for BTC to find some strength through this level, and that should be the catalyst for a lot of this stuff, right? It's really important with this stuff. You know, I'm showing you points of interest in the chart. Unless you get confirmation, unless you see a market structure shift, these aren't valid trades, right? Point of interest is, you know, 50, 60% of the trade. You need to know what your entry conditions look like in order to enter this. Now, you need to see confluence with USDT.D, with your altcoins, with BTC, etc. There's more that goes into this than just these points of interest, but these are my expectations. So if we get a lower time frame, market structure shift to confirm a reversal through these levels, then the idea is good. And I do think it's a likely idea, man. You can see that all of these are we've got inverse head and shoulders forming, man, across the board. So if you're looking at inverse head and shoulders like this, you're you know, if you're going to trade it that way, your target on BTC would actually be up at about 106K. You'd be looking up through here. That's if you're going to run the inverse head and shoulders target. If you're a pattern trader, which I'm not, but not anymore. So yeah, look, I do think we're going to get another leg up, guys. We can anticipate, we can have a look there. We'll have a lot more data. I'm sure, regardless of what the market is doing, if we get another push up, everyone's going to be extremely bullish immediately. If people are a little bit more hesitant, I'd definitely be favoring these longs a bit more, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to push up to this fourth. I think everyone's going to go extremely bullish again, and I think we're probably going to see one more sweep to the downside to probably about 2KF. Right, if I had to guess from here, which I don't, right? Once we get more data, it's going to be much easier for me to figure out what's going on. All right, take care, guys. I will be in the Discord. If you guys aren't in the Discord, you might want to trade this with us, whatever. I'll drop a link somewhere in the description. Take care. Good luck. Enjoy your weekend.